Once upon a time, the promise of net zero enjoyed such universal support that a Tory government signed the UK's net zero pledge into law. Today, the Tories say they'd scrap it, while alarm bells are ringing at the costs of the policy. Welcome to The Week in Business with me, Christian May. In June 2019, Prime Minister Theresa May passed a law with near unanimous parliamentary backing and very little debate, committing the UK to achieve net zero by 2050. She hailed the move as a historic step that would make the UK the first major economy in the world to set such a legally binding target. Now is the time to go further and faster, she said, for our children, obviously. It was framed as a moral issue, a moment to be on the right side of history. And while everyone was patting themselves on the back, and as the lofty ambition was turned into legal text, the UK accelerated down a path that is only now being fully understood. If Theresa May hadn't signed the 2050 target into law, somebody else would have. Such was the consensus, and such was the sense of inevitability whipped up in those heady pre-COVID, pre-war days. And where has it taken us? Well, we'll explore that in a moment, but first allow me a quick aside to ask if you fancy some VIP tickets for England v Australia at Twickenham, or perhaps a table for 8 at London's only Michelin star seafood restaurant. At the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you how you can win those prizes, so don't miss it. Now, back to business. The UK has the highest cost of energy in the developed world for households and businesses, and we've been putting wind farms up faster than our energy infrastructure can handle them, leading to a situation where we, taxpayers, bill payers, will pay £1 billion this year, £1 billion, to wind farm operators to turn off those wind farms when it's too windy. Vast sums are then spent on replacement gas power to keep the lights on, and that's almost certainly imported gas, by the way, as we've rather gone off producing much of our own. It's a problem known as curtailment. Too much wind produces too much power, and it would overwhelm the congested network, and so they're simply switched off. The National Energy System Operator, which runs the grid, says the cost of this, the constraint cost, will surge to about £8 billion a year by the end of this decade. We've put the cart before the horse. Wind farms were the great visible manifestation of our net zero drive, but we haven't built the pylons and the cables to make them worthwhile, something that will take years and cost further billions. Now, there's no problem with ultimately attaining a state of net zero emissions. The problems lie in the law, the target date, and the consequences of an ill-thought-through rush. High energy costs are forcing chemical, cement and manufacturing plants to close. Energy investment and associated manufacturing are heading for the US. The North Sea is viewed as an awkward relic rather than a natural asset, and the combination of green levies, subsidies and taxes are making a mess of the entire system. Today, the Conservatives, the moral and political architects of the 2050 target, say they would scrap their law. They've seen the light. The Institute of Economic Affairs says the Tories' announcement is the first step back to sanity, pointing out that the Climate Change Act of 2008, amended by the Tories in 2019, was the biggest central planning mistake since the Soviet Union's 5-year economic plans. Kemi Badenoch says climate change is real, but Labour's laws tied us in red tape, loaded us with costs and did nothing to cut global emissions. Previous Conservative governments tried to make Labour's climate laws work, and they don't. She said that the Conservatives would make the North Sea the cornerstone of UK energy policy by ending a ban on new oil and gas exploration, and that as Prime Minister her priorities would be growth, cheaper energy and a renewed commitment to protecting our environment. Even Labour, whose Climate Change Secretary Ed Miliband is a full-blown high priest of net zero zealotry, is considering rowing back from some of its bolder commitments. Well, that would certainly please the trade unions, who have been shouting at the deindustrialisation unleashed by the net zero sprint. Sharon Graham, boss of the Unite union, has called for Miliband to be sacked, labelling his net zero plan a disaster and accusing him of being completely irresponsible with the UK's energy security and jobs in the oil and gas sector. And she's right. Oil refineries are closing, chemical plants are closing, and the promised green jobs boom is felt more in consultancy in the civil service than in any factory. Ahead of the budget, the British Chambers of Commerce has called on the government to remove the windfall taxes imposed on oil and gas producers in the North Sea, saying the policy puts the UK at a huge competitive disadvantage. And meanwhile, our energy demands are going to skyrocket, not least given all the hungry new data centres unveiled in recent weeks. It seems that when it comes to energy, the best approach is to do everything everywhere, but not necessarily all at once. We need nuclear, and we're getting more of it, which is good. We need the North Sea, but we're somewhat ashamed of it. We need renewables, but only when the network can actually take the power. And we shouldn't be spending vast sums to subsidise biomass energy that burns wood shipped in from South America that is somehow supposedly green. And we do need to look again at the law of the land, the feel-good commitment to be net zero by 2050. The Tories and Reform have woken up to this. It seems many in Labour have too, particularly those at the sharp end, though it's likely that Ed Miliband will barricade himself in his office with hostages before recognising the political and economic reality that's coming into focus. Policies can change. They do evolve. They adapt to meet circumstances. They encounter problems and breakthroughs at unexpected moments. They do not always conform with political aspirations, timelines, and badly written laws. And it seems that that penny is beginning to drop. Now, time to cheer up a bit, because I want to tell you about City Winners, an amazing prize draw that offers City AM readers the chance to win incredible prizes, from VIP sporting events to backstage passes and amazing dining experiences here in London. We've partnered with some of our best friends from sport, hospitality and live events to curate some unbelievable experiences, and you can win them by taking part at citywinners.co.uk. Go and check it out. And that is it from me this week. Stay up to date and in the know with the City AM app and on cityam.com, and I will see you next week.